All right, so what we're going to learn today is negative numbers. So what I want you to do is imagine a really tall building. And it doesn't have 7 stories. It actually has more than that. I can only fit 7 stories on the paper. And then imagine that this building has a really, really deep basement. Not just one basement, but a bunch of them. Where do those basements go?
It goes to the bottom.
Yeah, and what do you think is down in the basement?
Storage and car parking.
Yeah, exactly. That's where you put the cars. And on this really, really tall building that has a really, really deep basement with many, many floors below it. And it doesn't just have 4 basement floors. It actually has hundreds and thousands and millions of basement floors. We just can't fit them all on the paper.
It goes until you get to the other end of the universe.
Yep. All right. And we have an elevator. And the elevator starts off at the ground floor. And let's put you inside of that elevator. There we go. That's you inside the elevator. All right. So, like I said, this building is so tall that I can't even tell you how tall it is. It just keeps on going. Past the sky, past Mars, all the way up.
Whoa, that's a lot.
And the basement goes all the way down. All the way.
The other side of the earth.
Yep, to the other side of the earth. So, let's try our first problem. 4 minus 3. 4 minus 3 means you start at the 4th floor. That's what that 4 is. And then the minus 3 means you go down 3 floors. Where will you end up?
Positive first floor.
Positive first floor, exactly. So you start at the 4, you go minus 3, you went down 3 floors, and you go to the first floor. Very good. Now, we don't necessarily always think of things, this number line in vertical terms. We actually like to do a horizontal one. And one way to do it is you have this horizontal line, you got the triangle that started at 4 and went backwards 3 till it got to 1. Does that make more sense?
Yes.
Okay.
I like this version better, though.
Which one? The elevator or the...
Elevator. It's
yeah,
fun.
The elevator is good, and I'm trying to show you the elevator because I want to introduce you to the idea of negative numbers. But the number line, I think, is really helpful because I think it's a lot easier to draw. Anyway, let's do 4 minus 7. So the 4 means you start off at the 4th floor. And minus 7 means you're going to go down 7 floors. So if you go down 4 floors, where will you end up being?
If I go down 4 floors?
If you started off at the 4th floor and you went down 4 floors, where will you end up being?
The ground floor.
The 0th floor, the ground floor, exactly. But we didn't go down 7 floors. We only went down 4. How many more do we need to go down?
3.
3 more floors because 4 is 3 less than 7, right?
Yes.
So where will you end up if you go 3 more floors down from the 0th floor?
You will be at the negative 3rd floor.
Very good. And to be honest with you, you can learn that by counting this, but I think it's kind of important. The way I presented this to you was I said 4, and then you go down to the 0th floor, and we still have 3 more left to go, so that would be the negative 3rd floor. Right?
Yeah.
I'm giving you a hint as far as how I like to think about doing this kind of math. Let's look at the number line. There's the 4. We're going down 7, and we end up at 1. Not 1. That's negative 3. That's a mistake.
Oy.
Oy. Okay. Next problem. So now this time we are starting off at the negative 1 floor. We're already starting off in the basement, and this kind of makes sense because if you go and park the car in the building, you're going to have to park in the basement, and so you're starting down below. And we want to go up 4 floors. Now, if we go up 1 floor, where would we be?
We'd be at the ground floor.
Yes, and how many more floors do we have to go up?
3 floors.
3 floors. So where will we end up at?
We'd end up at the positive 3rd floor.
Positive 3rd floor. Very good. And there you go. And the way this one works is you start off at negative 1, You go up 4, and you end up at the positive 3rd floor. Okay, next one. Now, we are starting off with the -1 floor, and we are going down 3 more floors. So, we start off with -1, and we're going to go down 3 floors. Where will we end up at?
The -4th floor.
Very good. Now, the way you can kind of think of this is -1 plus -3 is actually -4. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because 1 plus 3 is 4, and they're both negative, so I know I'm going in the negative direction both times. There we go. And the number line version, -1 minus 3 is -4. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
So, let me show you the number line. This is the horizontal number line, the one you don't like as much as the elevator, but not so bad now, right?
Yeah.
And if you go to the left of 0, it's less, or all the negative numbers are less than 0. They're to the left of the 0, if you're looking at a number line. And the way we can represent that is with this little inequality symbol. Have you ever seen an inequality symbol?
Yes.
Okay, it's the one where the alligator eats the bigger number?
Yeah.
All right, so now the alligator is eating the 0 because all the numbers on the other side of the alligator, which are the negative numbers, are smaller than it.
Nothing smaller than 0.
Well, negative numbers are smaller than 0.
What about -0?
Ah, that's a really good question. Is 0 a positive or negative number? And the answer is it's neither. It's not a positive number. It's not a negative number. See, I always thought it was a positive number. It was really hard for me to understand that it's neither. There's actually, I guess, 3 kinds of numbers. There's positive numbers, the 0, or negative numbers. And there's actually many, many kinds of numbers that we haven't talked about yet. But yeah, you can break down all numbers into those 3 categories, though, for sure. Now, the positive ones are the numbers that are greater than 0. They're all the numbers to the right of 0. And you can symbolize that by the inequality is greater than 0. The alligator, you see the alligator, and he's eating the numbers that aren't 0, because the 0 is going to be smaller than it.
Yeah.
Now, positive numbers are always going to be bigger than the negative numbers, okay? And the further you go down, the more negative a number gets. So the further left you go, the more negative. Now I have a question for you. Which one is bigger? -200 or +3?
+3.
Exactly.
Like
Even though 200 is a bigger number than 3, -200 is way over there to the left, and the +3 is, but it's still bigger than that.
It's tinier than my pinky.
No, okay. All right. Here's another way I like to think of it instead of thinking of the elevator. So I'm looking at -3 plus 5. And the way I think about this is this -3. You see that -3? It's shaking.
Yeah.
That tells me where to start. So I'm going to start you on -3. Now that plus symbol tells me whether to turn around or not. And since it's a plus symbol, it means I don't turn around. And then the +5 means I take 5 steps forward. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's equal to?
It's equal to +2.
Very good. -5 minus 3. Now, the way I look at this is this. What does the -3 tell you?
It tells me that you start off on -3.
Okay, there we go. Now, see this minus sign? This is a little bit different because the previous one was a positive sign. Now that minus sign tells me to turn around. And then this 5 over here says, okay, we've dealt with the -3, we dealt with the minus sign, now we got to deal with the 5. It says take 5 steps forward. Okay? Now, why isn't is it not take 5 steps backwards? Because there's a minus in front of that 5. Why shouldn't we take 5 steps backwards?
Because then you'd be going into the positive number.
Well, yes, but remember, we already took that negative into account by turning around. Right? So now we got to do 5 steps forward, which is actually to the left in this case. And you end up at
-8.
-8. Very good. All right. I'm going to show you one more trick, and we're looking at the exact same thing. -3 minus 5 is equal to, and we want to figure that out. So, -3 tells you what?
It tells me that you start off on -3.
Okay. Now see this minus sign? I'm actually going to do something a little bit different. I like to think of this minus sign as actually plus, so -3 plus -5. Now the reason why I like doing that is because it's easy for me in my head to add up 3 and 5. What is 3 plus 5?
3 plus 5 is 8.
8. And what I'm doing is I'm saying I'm already starting off at -3, and I'm going to go backwards another 5. See, that plus sign over there tells me not to turn around, but that -5 tells me to walk backwards 5 steps. And you end up over here, which is at
-8.
-8. Very good. And guess what, Shiloh? I love you.
Dad.